Hey guys, Saga here, and today, at the request of a fan, we're going to do a Reinhardt positional video. Now, the problem with talking about Reinhardt's positional play is that you can't really talk about positioning Reinhardt until you understand what Reinhardt should do and when. So I like to think about Reinhardt as a coin. There's two sides to him, right? One side you got Shield Heart, the other side you got Hammer Heart. And the key is to know when to flip it. Now look, I know this analogy is awful, but bear with me. So where I'm going to call this a positional guide, and for all intents and purposes it is, I just got to cover some basic do's and don'ts with playing Reinhardt. I can't tell you how many pickup games I've been in with a person who chooses Reinhardt decides to do one of two things at the wrong time, and that's either shield or swing his hammer. And a lot of the times they'll be swinging their hammer when they should be shielding their team, and other times they will be shielding when they should be swinging their hammer. A good example of swinging your hammer and not shielding is when you're pushing a choke, your team is behind you, they are shooting and supporting. That's the key point, that your team is shooting at things. You want to be swinging your hammer when your team is not doing their job. So like in pro level play, you see Reinhardt almost always shielding. He's shielding, he's looking for an opportune charge, and he's looking to land his ultimate on as much of the team as possible. And this works really well in pro level play because everybody on their team can not only shoot, but can hit things. The problem with pickup games, and especially at lower ranks, is that the people behind your Reinhardt, one, could be terribly inaccurate, and two, could just not be with your Reinhardt. I can't tell you how many games I've been in where 2 or 3 other people, 50% of the team is not pushing in center with the rest of the team. They're all flanking. And where it is okay to have flankers doing things, most of the times when you're making a centralized push, you want the rest of the team there to support your team. So you're playing Reinhardt and you're in a situation where nobody is behind you, you're with like 2 other team members, and people are moving up on you. At that point, you want to start swinging your hammer because no one else is going to kill them for you. You're not going to get lucky and they're just going to drop dead or retreat. You're probably going to die just with your shield up. I can't tell you how many times I've seen a Reinhardt just stand there as the Reaper gets closer and closer and closer, and then just runs through the shield and kills him because he just refused to swing his hammer. Conversely, if your team is there with you and they're shooting things, then yes, keep your shield up. Your team will repel the Reaper before he's able to close on you. All right, now another thing that matters is when to put your shield up. So a lot of Reinhardts will run in with their shield up, they'll block some damage, and then they'll just break their shield. And oftentimes they'll do this before the team is actually ready to push through the choke. This is problematic for all kinds of reasons, but the main one being, when your team wants to push, you don't have your shield fully charged. Or it delays the push, then somebody dies, now all of a sudden you can't push 5 versus 6, or you don't want to push, you know what I mean. Conserve your shield until the time you need to actually push it. Now don't get me wrong, if there are people behind you and you need to protect them, yes, shield. But don't just stand there with your shield active waiting for it to break. And the number one thing to not do, your entire team is behind you, you are protecting them. Reinhardt's voice line is, "I am your shield," okay? So everyone's doing the right things, your team is competent. Do not charge to get one charge kill and leave your team naked. I can't tell you how many games I have lost because my Reinhardt charges in, goes so deep healers can't heal him, kills somebody against a wall, congrats on the kill, and then loses the game for us. Look, I'm with you guys. I know it's hard to break yourself from that first-person shooter mindset where like, I'm doing great as long as I'm killing more than I'm dying, and that's just not, it's just not true in this game. Deaths matter much more for defending, and even on offense, an untimely death where you just like charge in and die can do a lot to set your team back. There's a very finite amount of time to push the first point. You don't want to mess around, you don't want to just die for no reason. With that said, the last thing I'm going to mention is a very timid Reinhardt, which I'm sure you guys have seen. 1, these people have no business playing tanks, and 2, if they are your tank, you have to find a way to encourage them. I like to pick Ana for that very reason, that you can nano boost a Reinhardt that does not know when to run in, because it's like the only time, it's like you gave him a confidence booster, you know? This is true with all tanks. If your team needs to push, you need to be able to say, okay, we're at the door, everybody go through. And at that moment, everybody's gotta break the choke. And your healers have to support you, and you have to trust them to keep you up for that finite amount of time. Most healers have some kind of burst thing they can do to help you, right? So Anna can throw her grenade and can help you get through the choke. Lucio can boost his sound, and we're not even talking about ults, just regular moves that can do that. But it's like a very short window, and the tanks that just like stand there in the doorway till they're whittled down to nothing, they will get you killed. All right, sorry, I didn't mean to go this deep into how to just play Reinhardt, but one last thing, charging people is okay. It's better to charge people either one, over short distances, so that you just pin them against a wall really quick and kill them. Two, into areas that are advantageous for you, so like if you're away from your team, you can charge somebody into your team. Or three, you need to make a decision where occasionally charging is just more valuable than anything else, and a good example of that is an enemy nano-boosted Reinhardt, where charging them and stopping them from swinging their hammer is the single most important thing you can do. Even occasionally suicide charges are fine, as long as you're making a good trade. Now, what's a good trade as Reinhardt? Probably their Reinhardt. I mean, you gotta think, if you think about this like a board game of some sort, right? The more high value pieces are pieces like tanks and healers, and that's for two reasons. The first being that flankers can return faster. Maybe not McCree, but just about everybody else can get back much quicker than other heroes. And the second reason is that tanks and healers are integral to keeping your team up. Where flankers, although they do damage, they're not as important as losing a major tank or a major healer, because they just make your entire team much more susceptible to ults. So you need to make sure you're trading correctly. So you need to consider these things as Reinhardt. Also remember that as Reinhardt, you have a very special perspective over the battlefield. You are the only character in the game who goes into a third-person view. So, with third-person view achieved, you have more vision radius than anyone else. You need to be calling things out. You need to be telling people things, where people are, and what they can do about them. This is, of course, much better in a pre-made than it is in a pug, but even in pugs, even if people don't have mics, usually they're listening. Usually. Alright, now if you were listening closely, I already covered a bit about just like how to move with him in general. Let's talk about him specifically on attack and defense. I'm not going to do this for every single map. I'm just going to teach you general rules that you can use in every game as Reinhardt. The reason I'm not going to do that for every map is because I find that rules are much more actionable than like very specific map strategy. The problem with talking really specific stuff like that is that if you don't have an entirely cooperating team and they're off in different locations, you still have to protect them as Reinhardt. So you can't just say, I'm gonna stand up here because it's the best place. You're 100% right, but your team just died, and you have to, unfortunately, deal with bad people, and you still have to protect them. Okay, very basic positioning. The reason defenders have an advantage is because the enemy team can set up in a concave while forcing you through a choke point. We all know this, right? Right. My yo-yo card, which is it's like how I ride the subway, is going to represent the enemy team Reinhardt, okay? Our Reinhardt can be the Vespa. Now the key to pushing this choke, and this is all there is to it, is to go in with your team, and to make sure that your team knows when to go in. Things like a countdown may help you. 1, 2, 3, push. You might not trade favorably, but the way attack and defense works in this game, even if you trade unfavorably, you can still come out ahead. This is because defense is a longer run back than offense. Any moving with the payload map, Reinhardt's going to be on the payload protecting it. The payload's going to serve as cover. Also, if you didn't know this, the payload heals you as well. In an ideal situation, Reinhardt's going to always be centrally where your team is located. After a team wipe or a partial team wipe, if Reinhardt has died, you want to wait for the rest of your team and then go with them. You want to make intelligent decisions like not running in and trying not to, go flanking, because you're the tank. You're the centralized location that your team is supposed to congregate around. The most important part about pushing a choke is not the actual running in. I'm sure you've all done that successfully before and understand why it was successful. The most important part is before you run in. Let me explain. I would guess that on average, this shield will stay active for around 5 seconds of heavy fire from 2000 HP. what that means is you have exactly 5 seconds to get in that choke. What you don't want to do is spend time here. I know I mentioned this before, please stop doing this. So before you run in, you want to position your pieces more like this. And then when it comes time to push, everybody moves their pieces in behind your Reinhardt. And maybe your flanker, by the way, this is King's Row. Your flanker might decide to move in at the same time here. Number one thing about pushing chokes, coordination. Moving with the payload is simple, I'm not going to cover that. You basically want to protect your team. Now remember, you do not want to swing unless the value of swinging is worth more than the value of protecting your teammates. Once you start moving with the payload, you get to use the payload as cover. You don't always have to have your shield up. You do have to pay attention to the incoming damage. A lot of the big damage in this game is projectile based and you can actually see it coming, so you can flicker your shield on and off. Remember, there's always going to be an argument in your head between the value of shielding versus swinging your hammer. I would suggest the shield if you're going to hit multiple people with it, and if you're not going to instantly die if you drop your shield. So if you're on top of the enemy's healer and maybe a DPS and you can swing and take them both out and you have a reasonable expectation of staying alive, then yes, swing your hammer. If not, and if your team is with you, trust them to do the damage. Keep the shield up. If you drop your shield and then 2 people behind you die and then you kill 2 people, then that wasn't worth it. Also, another good time to swing is whenever you're nano boosted. I'm sure you knew that. Oh, quick trick. If you're Reinhardt and you're playing and you're against another Reinhardt and you get nano boost, what you want to do is run up to the Reinhardt and immediately flicker your shield on. Do not charge him because he's likely to ult you the second he sees nano boost. So what I do is I run up to him, I'm about to swing my hammer, he thinks, I turn on my shield, I block his Earth Shatter, and then I go to town on him. That ordering is so important. I can't tell you how many times I've seen Reinhardt versus Reinhardt fights just come down to nano boost, and then he Earth Shatters, and then the other Ana nano boost, and then the one who was nano boosted second wins. And it's just silly. It's because they get nano boost, they get too excited, they don't think about possible counters. Everyone's gonna look to slow you down at that point. So you need to anticipate the most obvious one. All right, so we've already talked about most of the things you need to know to make intelligent positioning decisions, and intelligent decisions involving whether or not you should swing your hammer or keep your shield up. The last thing I want to cover is where to position him with a team of intelligent people. I say this because you do need to, unfortunately, you need to cater for the lowest common denominator. So if like 2 of your DPS run forward to a place that's bad to stand, you can't just let them die, because if they both just die, then it's such a snowball that you're gonna lose the position regardless of your better positioning. Alright, so my prime example of this is Route 66. So on Route 66, I'm actually gonna cue to a video I made earlier here. This is a really bad place because of this. Anyone who comes up and around can easily get a flank on you. And not to mention, there's also a lower flank over here, but the really dangerous one is this side, because they can get behind you from either here, or through that door, or through this door, come around behind your team and destroy your defensive line. Basically, the idea behind that video is that everyone's making a mistake and coming up to that first choke point area. That area is such a critical error in judgment because the upper area involves flanking paths, and the lower area. These are areas where your defending team can easily get surrounded and overtaken. A much better idea is to just never fight them on the way up and stand on top of the gas station. They're gonna have a lot harder of a time breaking this point. So, on stages like Route 66 and on Gibraltar, you want to position your Reinhardt up with your team all up on the high ground. High ground advantage is real. It's real in this game. It's harder for heroes to get to the high ground. Even heroes with movement abilities like Genji, who are very maneuverable and able to have vertical mobility, still have to climb the wall to get there or use a blade dash. And that matters because that's extra time they're taking to get to you. And if they're running up a wall, they're not shooting. It's also really hard to get to an entrenched position that's on a high ground. And if you have competent defenders and competent people who know how to shoot, they're gonna have a much harder time breaking anything like that. And the key with Reinhardt there is to just position your shield and trust your DPS to do the damage. Alright guys, that's it for today's video. If you like my content and you want to see more, please subscribe. I make Overwatch and Hearthstone videos, and I also vlog about many other things. I travel the world, I live in Taiwan, I do all kinds of things. Stuff and things. See you next time.
Triple kill. My true potential is unleashed.